Welcome to another massive edition of the RDFNL Netball Show. Thanks to our friends at Ontime Delivery Solutions. My name's Yeendy. I'm joined by Tara Murray. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly an interesting round of netball that we saw last weekend.
It is, and you see all these people complain about the one-sided matches on the football field. They should be getting to watch the netball. This competition is so unpredictable this season. You've probably got 8 teams fighting for the top 6, and any of those teams can get a win on their day.
Can we talk up possibly the biggest win that we'll see this year and maybe in recent seasons? And when I say the biggest win, Rockbank taking down Riddle, that is just unbelievable.
Rockbank keeps surprising every week. They've had a few down weeks, but look, they've knocked off Diggers Rest, they've knocked off Melton Centrals, they've knocked off Riddle. I know it was the first time they've knocked off Melton Centrals. This is the first time ever in A-grade netball. Be pretty certain it's nearly the same with Diggers Rest and Riddle. That was massive, and not only was that the way they did it, Riddle was up by 9 goals at quarter time.
Wow.
and scores were level at 3/4 time. So in the end, the Rams ran over the top of them and were absolutely dominated that last quarter to win by 5 goals in a high-scoring affair. But that is massive for Rockbank. And I was looking at the results. I was on leave, but I still looked at the results and I'm like, I was shocked.
That is just amazing. We know the club is going through a rebuilding phase, but if that does not lift the club, I don't think anything will.
Look, I think they said at the start of the season they were looking at finals. They were just hoping to sneak into finals, see how they went. They win round 1 against Melton Centrals and go, okay, and people go, yep, now we're starting to see they can play finals, and they've got that belief. I know that at times people go, they wouldn't expect the Rams to compete against these sides, but they can, and they can get these wins. So it was a massive result. And look, both sides have got a very dominant shooter. You've got Rebecca Hicks, shot 47 goals for the Rams. You have Beck Caldwell at the other end, 36. Probably very similar in they're under the post shooters and shoot high volume of goals. But it was a couple of the young defenders for both sides that sort of stood out. You had Kira Baldwin for Riddle, and then you had Danny Jane Yamaki for Rockbank. So they're 2 very young defenders to keep an eye on, and both have shown they can match it with the best in the competition.
That's quite amazing. What does that sort of say about Riddle?
Look, we saw Riddle play they had a brilliant win against Rupertswood the week before, so this is probably one of their only really poor games. They've been really good in most of the games. If not, they've been in range at the last quarter, and obviously this one they were still in the game until the last quarter, so they'll probably be pretty disappointed to give up a lead like that. It's probably one of their more disappointing games of the season, but they're saying that if it's one of their more disappointing games and they've still only lost by 5 goals, it's saying that they're still in the mix in every single game.
Exactly. And you talk about the team they took down the previous week, that being Rupertswood. They counted for Broadford.
Look, there was no surprise here, and this is, I think, the second time in 3 weeks these 2 sides faced each other, and one thing we're probably looking for from a Broadford perspective was to reduce the margin on what they did. Unfortunately, they shot about the same amount of goals, but the margin went from a 40-goal loss to a 48-goal loss. So that's saying the Sharks were probably a little bit more on. They saved their best for last. They shot 23 goals in that final quarter. So
that's a great effort.
That's a great effort. And any team, any day, 23 goals. And I think they had at least 14 goals in every quarter. So it was a quite dominant performance from the Sharks, and that's what we expected going into the round.
Speaking of dominance, Macedon took down Wood End Heskett by over 50 goals. The Hawks, without one of their bright stars, Sarah Duff, who'll probably be out for the next 12 months with an injury.
Well, yeah, they're also missing Tara Burnett there as goals. And you mentioned Sarah Duff. She's been the standout for the Hawks this season. Not just, she obviously was part of the AFL Goldfield squad as well to head up North, their under-17 squad. She's known as a mid-quarter, but she's had to step in goals, and she's provided a lot of flexibility, not only in the A-grade side, but in the under-19s. And as you said, she's suffered a serious knee injury. I believe it's her ACL, plus she's done damage to a couple of the other ligaments as well. So that's probably 12 months out for her, and that's a massive loss for the Hawks. It was quite a dominant performance from Macedon, who, looking at that, I believe possibly may have had their full side for the first time. If not, they were probably only missing one player, so it was quite dominant, and they shot at 88% for the game. And
that's amazing.
It was, and it was 18 to 1 goals in the final quarter. So we mentioned obviously Rupertswood's dominant final quarter. It was the same for Macedon as well, so it was tough for Wood End. They were under strength, and then you play the ladder leaders who were starting to fire.
Yeah, it was spot on there. And we talk about another game that certainly caught the eye. Melton Centrals took down Diggers Rest by 1 goal, and you mentioned earlier on the show just how much improvement this competition is showing. that is a big one for the comp.
Look, it's quite interesting. When I spoke to Randy, Melton Central's coach, a couple of weeks ago. They were sitting second bottom. I think they had 1 win and a draw.
That's
so
right.
They'd had a pretty poor. And he said we haven't ruled out finals. He had said that they've come out. They beat Broadford, which they needed to do, and now they've knocked off Diggers Rest, which is one of those sides they'll be fighting for a final spot. It was another close one. It was 34-33. So the biggest margin at any of the breaks was 2 goals. So it was a close game all day. They had Lauren Creed, who's sort of come in as a shooter for Melton Centrals. They've been trying to get that position right, and they shot at 74%, which is probably one of the better ones for Melton Centrals for the season. Not a great one compared to some of the other sides, but better for them. And your Diggers Rest, they're missing players, and especially in their mid-court, and it's sort of hurting them there. Carly Harrison's probably the big one out of their mid-court, is the big loss there, and you're missing a couple of their defenders as well, so they've had to switch things. So they're under strength, and after getting a 1-goal win, I think the previous week, now a 1-goal loss, it's been a tough run for them, so they're sort of back in the pack coming into the finals.
We talk about 1 goal again. Romsey and Wallen went to a 1-goal finish.
This is another cracker game, and
a great round, wasn't it?
It was, and that's what. Look, I think my tipping sort of may have taken a dip because I tipped Diggers Rest and Rockbank, but Diggers Rest and Riddle. Sorry, but I did tip Wallen, and this was a thriller. So it was another one that there was nothing in them all day. Pretty close one, and Magpies sort of been able to get the job done. They lost a couple of close ones early on, but now they're winning these close matches, and they're showing they've got the composure under pressure. For the Redbacks, this is a season what might have been. They have been in that many close games. You look, they're always in the mix, but I think they've had a draw. They've had a 1-goal win, 2 1-goal losses. I think a 5-goal loss, a 5-goal win, a 6-goal loss. So you look at that, they're in every single game, and in some of those losses, they're leading at half-time and 3/4 time and not able to get the job done. But it's sort of showing that the Magpies have got that consistency, and they have got that composure when they really need to.
Yeah, exactly. And they've had to do a bit of a restructure as well with their shooting department, also with losing one of their big gun forwards.
Yeah, so obviously you're talking about Romsey there. So obviously with Bronwyn Blair going down, we weren't 100% sure. They have brought in Hope Evans, who, look, obviously we all know what Hope can do, and Hope has played a lot of netball with Chelsea Ross. So if you're going to bring someone into a shooting circle, you've brought in someone who knows the game, who knows this side, who knows these players. So it's probably a smoother transition than bringing in someone completely who hasn't played with these players before. But obviously, for me, the Magpies continue to show they will be around the mark come finals time, and probably looking at a top at this point. One of the two sides looking for second and third, with Macedon quite clear on top of the ladder.
Exactly, not bad for a team that didn't take place last year, with Wallen not actually having an A-grade netball side last year.
It is, and you look at that. You look how quickly this team has gelled together. So a lot of times we've seen, obviously, Broadford didn't have an A-grade team last year. They've struggled. Whether the Magpies in the same situation, they've gelled together and come to are playing some beautiful netball. Yep,
spot on there. As we turn our attention to this week, we've got you mentioned Broadford. They are taking on Romsey.
Look, this is a match Romsey needs to win. Obviously, after a disappointing loss on the weekend, another 1-goal loss, they'll be looking to hit back on fire and have a big win at that as well.
Yeah, this percentage will be crucial for them too.
It is a percentage booster. You look at it, you go you've got Romsey on 18 points, you've got Diggers Rest on 16, Rockbank on 16, Melton Centrals on 14, saying that obviously Diggers Rest and Romsey still have another game to go between those two sides, so one of them will gain an extra 4 points, but there's only 4 points between 4 sides trying to get in for 5th and 6th spots, so they do need that percentage, because it could come down to that, saying that they do have that draw.
Yeah,
that could play a vital part, because they're only even with Melton Centrals on that points at the moment. So that is one thing that could come into play as well.
You play Diggers Rest and Romsey today. I know they played a few weeks ago, but who wins that one if it was played now?
Look, I'd probably say Romsey. Look, if Diggers Rest had their full side back, I think you'd look at that. When they did play a couple of weeks ago, Romsey didn't have Hope shooting, so they did have to look at some other options. So it'll be quite interesting how they go. I think it'll be another close one, as we've seen both of these teams have been in a number of close ones, but I'd probably go Romsey just with their full strength side.
That gives us a bit of an idea on your thoughts on how this ladder is starting to shape up. As we go through the other games, Wallen and Macedon, they've faced off once already this year, with the Cats winning by 9 goals, but I think that was the last time Wallen actually tasted a loss as well.
It is, obviously. I think they had the draw with Rupert's Wood as well since then. But we saw that it was a determined effort that last time, and this is probably a good indication for the Magpies how far they've come. Obviously, the Cats have been on top of the ladder, and they haven't fired it on all cylinders this season. I think their match against Woodend on the weekend is probably one of their better performances, obviously playing a lower side, but they're starting to get their full squad available, and that's going to be pretty dangerous because they have a number of options in every single position.
Opportunity to see where Wallen are at.
And that's it. I think this is a good opportunity. And Macedon can't take Wallen lightly. Wallen's shown that they can be in every single match. And if it's down to the last quarter, we've seen recently that the Magpies have got that composure late in games. So it could be, they could really test the Cats.
Macedon wins this one for yours?
Look, I'm still tipping the Cats. There's no reason not to tip the Cats.
Yeah.
They've won every match, even when they're not firing on all cylinders. So I'll stick with the Cats.
Woodend, Heskett and Riddle.
Well, this is another interesting one. I think Riddle will be too strong. They've got that bit more experience, especially at both ends of the court with Beck Caldwell and Lauren Close. And I think they're probably going to be the difference. Besides that, they're both very, very young sides, and there's a lot of good signs for the future. But I think the Bombers are going to be too strong and they'll bounce back. Yeah,
I agree with you on that one there. Rupo and Melton Centrals, this is an incredible contest, and with Centrals can prove that they can beat anyone on any given day, this is the day where they also live up to it.
And that's it. The Centrals, if they're going to continue their comeback, they sort of need to claim a scalp and claim one of these top 3 or 4 sides. So, and Rupert's Wood is one of them. You've got obviously playing indoors. They can't. The shooting conditions will help them as well, because they have been a little bit up and down with their shooting this season. But I think the Sharks are going to be too strong. We've seen they've got a number of options, and they've played some really good netball at times this season. And I think they're quite content with where things are. And look, I think the Sharks will win easy.
I think Centrals will get within maybe 10 goals, and I think they'd be happy with that. They'd obviously love to win, but I think a 10-goal result, given that Rupert's would have been going this year, would be fitting. And the final game, which could very well, there's a lot of great games this weekend, but this one is going to be a cracker. Stiggers Rest and Rockbank. The winner will assert themselves into the top 6.
Look, obviously, you look at this, it's quite an interesting one here. We spoke about they have played each other already once this season, and Rockbank got an upset win that day.
Yep.
So it's going to be quite interesting. The Rams need to keep that momentum going. They've managed to get some good wins this season, but now it's about getting that second win in a row. Obviously, they did knock off Riddle last week, and they had a brilliant performance, probably their best performance of the season. So they sort of need to keep that momentum, and obviously Diggers Rest might depend a little bit who they do have taken to the court. They are under strength at the moment, and it sort of has hit their results. So if they've got their full strength side, it'll be quite an interesting contest. But on form, you've probably got to go for the Rams.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Rockbank would be they'd be really happy about how they're travelling at the moment. And I guess the beauty about this competition is that, aside from Woodend Heskett, they're sort of young and upcoming. They've got a few injury concerns, and Broadford, who are still developing. There's no other easy games. There's no games where you can go, all right, well, we could probably pick up a big percentage boosting win further down the track. Basically, I think the top 8, anyone can beat anyone.
And as you mentioned that this week, obviously we've got Rupert's Wood, who's second, playing Melton Centrals, who are 8th. We saw Melton Centrals beat Rupert's Wood in a final last year. Very different conditions, very different weather.
Yep.
But you can see that these sides can do it now, and you're starting to see some really good netball, and these new players developing. We've seen a core group of players sort of play in this competition for a number of years. We're starting to see these younger players starting to make an impact and show, we'll stand up and be counted. And then obviously Macedon is undefeated, but I don't think it's a one-horse race. It's any of these sides on their day. Look, Rupert's Wood and Wallen have both tested Macedon. I saw Riddle in round 1 test them as well. So, and if you get some of these other sides on their day, we've looked at what Rockbank has been able to do, then they can quite easily beat anyone.
Showing this competition is alive and well, and it'll certainly go down to the wire. Thanks to our friends at Ontime Delivery Solutions. Thanks to you, Tara, from the Star Week, for jumping on board. We look forward to catching up with everyone next week.
Thanks for having me.